My parents stole my $18,000 escape fund to save their golden child. Posted in r/pro revenge. There is a specific kind of silence that falls over a house when trust is permanently broken. It is not peaceful. It is heavy, suffocating, and final. Today I'm going to tell you how my parents sacrificed my entire future to save their favorite child, and how it cost them absolutely everything 10 years later. I think the hardest part about growing up as the scapegoat in a toxic family is that you learn to be completely invisible. You have to be. From the moment I was old enough to understand the unspoken dynamics of our household, I knew I was only second best. Actually, I was not even second best. I was just the background noise to my older brother's chaotic life. My brother Mark was the sun. The entire family system revolved around his moods, his desires, and his constant, exhausting stream of mistakes. If Mark wanted something, he got it. There were never any questions asked. If Mark failed a class, it was the teacher's fault for not understanding his learning style. If he wrecked a car, it was the road's fault or the weather's fault. It was never his fault. He was completely insulated from the concept of consequences. But me, I was the built-in disappointment. If I brought home a flawless report card, my mother would barely glance at it before asking why I did not join more clubs to improve my college applications. I remember being 12 years old, sitting quietly on the top step of our staircase, watching them throw Mark a massive 16th birthday party. They had rented a massive outdoor tent, catered expensive food, and bought him a brand new truck with a giant red bow on the hood. On my 16th birthday, they forgot. Completely and utterly forgot. When I casually reminded them at the dinner table that evening, my father did not even look up from his plate. He did not apologize. He just sighed, pulled a wrinkled $20 bill from his leather wallet, slid it across the table, and told me to go buy myself a slice of cake if I cared that much. That was the exact night I stopped being a daughter. That was the night I started planning my permanent exit. I got my first job the very next day. I walked 2 miles to a worn-down diner on the edge of town and begged the manager for the graveyard shift. For the next 2 years, I smelled like stale coffee and old grease every single day of my life. My feet constantly throbbed from standing on cheap linoleum, and I was perpetually exhausted in my high school classes. But I did not care. Every single dollar I earned went into a secret savings account at a local credit union across town. I called it my escape fund. It was not just money to me. It was hope. It was the only tangible thing keeping me anchored to reality in that deeply broken house. Every time Mark threw a tantrum, every time my mother belittled my clothes, I just pictured my bank balance growing. For 2 agonizing years, I worked double shifts on weekends and all through the major holidays. While Mark was out partying, failing out of his first semester of community college, and totaling his second car, which my parents immediately replaced by taking out a second mortgage, I was scrubbing diner floors until my knuckles were raw and bleeding. By the time I was 18, I had saved exactly $18,400. It was an absolute fortune to me. It was enough for a deposit on a small apartment, a cheap used car, and the entire first year of tuition at a state school. I was finally going to be free. I had quietly toured a small apartment near the campus, and the landlord had the lease printed and ready for me to sign on a Monday morning. I could already taste the quiet, beautiful peace of living completely alone. Then Sunday night happened. The fragile illusion of my family finally broke wide open. I came home from a brutal 12-hour shift at the diner. I was completely exhausted, my muscles aching, just wanting to sleep before walking to the landlord's office to sign my lease the next day. I walked into the kitchen and my parents were sitting at the table in total silence. Lying flat on the table, right between them, was my credit union bank statement. I had hidden it under a loose floorboard in the back of my closet, but my mother had been tearing through my room again under the disguise of doing laundry. I froze. My heart felt like a solid block of ice in my chest. My mother looked up at me and there was absolutely no guilt in her eyes. There was only a cold, terrifying anger. She demanded to know how I could be so incredibly selfish. She asked how I could sit there and hoard all of this money while my brother was in serious, life-threatening trouble. Mark, in all his infinite wisdom, had managed to rack up $20,000 in illegal gambling debts with some very dangerous people. The men he owed were threatening him, and my parents were absolutely desperate to save their golden child from finally facing a real consequence. I did not speak. I rushed down the hall to my bedroom, grabbed my laptop with violently shaking hands, and logged into my bank portal. The screen loaded. My available balance was $0. Because my name was on the account, but I had been legally required to open it with a parent when I was 16, my mother was technically considered a joint owner. She had walked into the branch on Friday afternoon and legally drained every single penny I had bled for over 2 years. My freedom, my escape, my entire carefully planned future, gone. Erased in an afternoon. Just to bail out a parasite who would never learn. I walked back into the kitchen. I think they fully expected me to scream. I think they wanted me to throw a massive tantrum so they could call me dramatic, play the victims, and justify their theft. But I didn't. The betrayal was so absolute, so entirely devastating, that it instantly killed whatever lingering trace of affection I had left for them. I looked at the two people who were supposed to protect and nurture me. I realized with crystal clarity that they would drain me dry until the day I died if it meant shielding Mark from the real world. Without saying a single word, I turned around and walked back to my room. I grabbed a faded canvas duffel bag. I packed 3 pairs of jeans, a few plain shirts, and my passport. I slung it over my shoulder and walked straight to the front door. My father stood up, his face red with sudden rage, and yelled that if I walked out that door, I was never allowed to come back. I did not even look at him. I just opened the door and kept walking out into the dark. It has been 10 years since that night. Starting over from absolute zero was a living, breathing nightmare. I slept in the back seat of a battered sedan for 7 months. I worked 3 awful minimum wage jobs just to eat. I lived on cheap rice and canned beans. But I survived. I built a life that I am fiercely, ruthlessly protective of. I now own a thriving digital marketing agency, I have a beautiful, quiet home in the suburbs, and most importantly, I have absolute peace. I never spoke to them again. Not a single text message, not a holiday card, not a phone call. Until yesterday. I was sitting in my living room reading when the doorbell rang. I opened the door, and standing on my porch was an old, deeply fragile woman. It took me a long moment to even recognize my own mother. She looked completely destroyed, her clothes worn and her posture defeated. Through her heavy sobbing, the inevitable truth finally came out. Mark had not changed. He had never changed. After they paid off his gambling debt with my future, he just kept taking. He convinced them to co-sign massive loans for a fake business venture. He secretly maxed out multiple credit cards in their names. When the banks finally initiated foreclosure on their house, Mark changed his phone number, packed his things, and vanished. They were completely broke, entirely destitute, and exactly 3 days away from being homeless. She looked up at me with those exact same entitled eyes, expecting me to fix it. She cried about how we were family, how blood is thicker than water, and how they had nowhere else to go. I looked at this woman. The woman who casually stole my only escape fund to feed a black hole. I took a slow, deep breath. I searched my chest for any trace of sympathy, and I found absolutely nothing. I told her that she made her choice 10 years ago. I told her she stole my future to buy her golden child a few more years of comfort, and she needed to go find him now. I told her my house was not her retirement fund. I stepped back, gently pulled the heavy oak door shut, and locked the deadbolt. As I listened to her crying on my porch, I walked back to my couch, sat down, and returned to my book. Was closing the door the right thing to do? Or should family always be forgiven no matter the cost? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to hear more stories of raw karma and ultimate betrayal, hit the subscribe button and like this video.